Obviously, the inverse of multiplication is division, just like in whole numbers. When we do 3 times 4, the result is 12. And if we want to find one of the factors, 12 divided by 3 is 4, or 12 divided by 4 is 3. The same thing works for fractions. We have two different kinds of division problems that we focus on. The first one is grouping problems, and these are really important when we start to talk about dividing fractions, and you'll see why in a few days, because we're going to do both grouping and sharing kinds of problems. The first one is a grouping problem. This is the kind where you know how many total, and then you know how many will be in each group. What you don't know is how many groups you can make. So for example, PE is a perfect example of a grouping problem. Say Mrs. Edding has 43 kids in her class, and she knows that for her game, she needs to have 8 kids on each team, but she doesn't know how many groups she could make. So she would have to do 43 divided by 8 to find out how many teams she could make. This is a grouping problem where you take the entire total amount and you break them into groups. The other kind of a division problem is a sharing problem. Again, you know the total number in the whole thing, but you know how many groups you have this time. So for example, say Joey had 4 friends over and he knew that he had 2 dozen cookies. What he didn't know was how many cookies he could give to each person. So that's where he's taking his cookies and saying one for you, and one for you, and one for you, until he figures out how many cookies each person can have. So in this situation, he knows the total number and the number of groups he's going to make, but he's not quite sure how big the group will be or how many cookies each person is going to get. It's always easy to remember if you're going to do a one for you, one for you, one for you, that's a sharing problem.